This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending our training tonight. We're going to be learning all about co-living investment properties. So it's probably best to have your microphone on mute for now while Alex presents. However, she probably will ask for questions at certain times, so feel free to write down your questions. And I'd like to introduce to you Alexandra. She's from Gallery Homes and she's been doing a great job with these co-living investment properties. So I'd love to introduce you to her now and she'll run the session. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Catherine. So it's great to be able to work with the Property Club because I have been, in my previous job at Sunland Group, I dealt with quite a lot of different Property Club mentors out of WA and elsewhere, and have done quite a number of property runs as well as attending one of your big seminars in Perth. So I know the model well, and so looking forward to being able to bring that experience to Gallery Home. So as I was mentioning to you, Roger, we've been living and breathing co-living for about 2 years. And you mentioned that you've been selling rooming houses, which I'm assuming is a 1B construction. It probably had 4 or 5 or maybe 9 bedrooms. And that's a slightly different type of co-living home that has a whole heap of other requirements. And we've been working a lot in that space and finding that we were having clients come to us that were being diverted from NDIS style property investments, but they were usually well-heeled investors that had big buying power, had some experience with having to go into a commercial loan, had equity that they could help cover up any shortfalls. But we were looking at how we could kind of develop a new type of high income property, and this style of co-living, which is a 1A co-living, which allows for a maximum of 3 bedrooms, was really something that we developed in response to Moreton Bay Council saying no more duals just before Christmas. And so when we actually started to look at what is 2021 going to look like for dual dwellings, which has always been a big opportunity for us in the investment market, we realised that we had options in Ipswich. Challenges with Ipswich is there's limited lots available to do a dual dwelling, and you're obviously restricted to doing a 4-bed, 1-bed dual. And the reality is, if you look at the yields that you can achieve in Ipswich, you really are sitting around that 5.8 to 6% as being your top end yield. You can obviously still do dual dwellings in Logan Council area, but again, you've now got to have a 15-metre frontage and 450 square metres. So your land acquisition costs have increased, plus council increased their headworks charge from 11,000 to 17,000. So just those kind of fixed costs in dual dwellings really has sort of pushed dual dwelling prices to above the $600,000 mark. And I don't think that the rents have grown far enough to really protect that 6.5% return. So we were looking at, okay, what is next in terms of high income? And we knew the legislation for co-living inside out, what the restrictions were, how you could use it, what kind of applications needed to be considered. And we thought there's actually this point at which a co-living drops from a 1A residential product to a 1B, and it's that switch from a 1A to 1B where the costs increase and the livability of the home is far more distinguished. So we were like, well, what if we come back to 1A? What is possible? And this is what we've developed here. So this website, Gallery, Reward by Gallery, is a dedicated website for co-living homes, and it's a really fantastic educational tool to kind of give you a sense as to all the parts that go into it. So what we knew was what we had already been doing with our bigger co-living homes, and so we did a series of surveys, and we found that from the over 1,300 people that responded, that the average age of the tenant was 33 years. If you could get a dedicated co-living home.
Sorry, Alex, are you showing your screen? Because we can't see your screen. At least I can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't see it?
Not at the moment. I can't see your screen. Can anyone else see Alex's
Yeah,
screen?
I can see it.
Yes, I can
Yeah,
see
we
it.
can see it, Roger. Might be
Okay,
your
that's
internet.
all right. Sorry.
No
No
worries.
problem. So we did a series of research to discover that there's a couple of key elements that need to be included in co-living. So we know who the tenant is, they're 33 years of age, average tenure in a dedicated co-living home is 4 to 5 years. We actually have undertaken some further surveys since we actually did the original ones, and we actually know that this number is $100 per week. That on the quality of the offering, the rent that someone is prepared to pay will increase by up to $100 per week, and that these were the critical elements that needed to be included in the design. They had their own private bathrooms, they had a lockable pantry, that they were a dedicated co-living, so that all 3 members of the household were equal participants and not living with the owner. They were fully furnished and they had their own air conditioning unit. Something else that came out of this was how far tenants are having to move in order to secure a co-living home. So then we started to look at dwelling supply. And now Gallery is working with flatmates.com.au, and that is how we're securing all of our tenants for all of our co-living homes. Now, Flatmates is owned by rea.com.au, and there's a couple of things to understand with the way they work. Flatmates has 50% of the market for supply of rooms, but they only have 35% of the market with regards to the tenancy demand. And as you can see here, less than 5% of the rooms available have a private bathroom. So then we started to look at, okay, how big is the demand for these properties? And the one thing that's become the most obvious to us is going back through the census data, and this single occupant or lone person household has been the fastest growing household type for 42 years. So this is not a new trend. Some of the other things that we started to understand and really kind of, I suppose, take particular notice of is that 50% of the full-time working population of Australia earn $88,000 or less. So 50% of everyone who is employed full-time earns $88,000 or less. Now, if you're earning $88,000 and we're still using that metrics of 1/3 of your take-home salary being used for your accommodation, then the maximum they should be spending is $450 per week. But if you actually come down to somebody who's earning $65,000 a year, they are earning too much money to be able to benefit from any type of government assistance. But at $65,000 per year, the most money they should be spending on their accommodation is $320 per week. We also know over the next 20 years, there is an expectation that the current trend for this lone person household growth to continue, and that actually equates to 1.5 million more single occupant households over the next 20 years, which, you know, if you roughly calculate, is 50,000 properties, 50,000 households, single occupant households per year. So when you actually start to think about that in terms of, well, if we try and accommodate just 10% of that into a co-living home, being 5,000 people, that would still require us to deliver somewhere between 1,700 and 1,800 co-living homes. Now, I'll just jump up here to the investors and you'll see supply versus demand. And Roger, we've designed this website. Reward by Gallery is for Queensland. We have a sister website called Aspire by Gallery, which is for our Victorian market, only because there's so much information, it was too hard to try and collate it all together. But down here, I've listed a number of suburbs in various LGAs where we have previously had access to land or currently have access to land, and these are areas that we're being asked for on a fairly regular basis. So if I came back up to the top and I look at Deception Bay, supply of rooms. So there are currently 3 rooms available in Deception Bay or surrounding suburbs that are furnished with an ensuite and a private room in a dedicated co-living home. So there are 3 rooms available. As I mentioned, Flatmates has 50% of the supply market. So let's double that to allow for 6 rooms being available within this catchment. If we come back and we look at the number of tenants, they're currently sitting at 83. And we have done this as a minimum rent of $250. But if I actually drop that down to $200, because we know based on our research that if we offer all of the requirements they need, you're now at 155 tenants looking for a room. Now we know that Flatmates has 35% of the tenancy market. So let's just triple that. And that gives you a sense that there is over 400 tenants looking for a room with a minimum $200 per week rent that's fully furnished with a bathroom, and there are currently 6 rooms available. And it's because of that we have to start working and looking for tenants for a co-living home while the house is still under construction. Because of that huge disparity between supply and demand, tenants are having to look at a property 12 to 16 weeks ahead of their move-in date. So building regulation. So as I mentioned, this is 1A. In order for this property to stay 1A, we can have a maximum of 3 tenants in the property. The benefit of it being 1A construction means that it goes through the normal building approval process, a right of use process. So we would need to adhere to any design guidelines of a particular land estate, but the application for approval is the same as it would be for a traditional home. Once you go to the 4th tenant, you must then register with Queensland Housing Services, and you must adhere to the Rooming Act of 2008, as well as having these additional requirements, which increases the build cost and actually decreases the functionality of the room. So what we've done is we have created a couple of properties. Now, we've got 8 co-living floor plans in total. So the benefit is that I can basically find a co-living home that would basically fit on any block of land. But we've just put 2 of sort of the most regularly asked for blocks. So the Carlo 190 here will fit on a 12.5 metre frontage that's 28 metres deep. So it'll fit on a 350 square metre block. So the benefit of that is that block size is much easier to come by, but it also means I can deliver this household at a price point that hasn't been achievable with a dual dwelling for years. So the benefit of this property is that it presents like a 4-bedroom home. So what happens is you end up with 3 tenants on 3 leases paying 3 bonds. So you have tenant 1 in here, it's an oversized bedroom, mirrored robes, private ensuite. As I mentioned, these properties have got to be furnished, so there would be a data and a TV point in here, and a television would be installed on the wall as part of the furniture package. You've then got bedroom 3. Now, this bathroom has been designed to be a 2-way bathroom. While this property is being utilised as a co-living home, this door here would be locked to the hallway so that this would function as an ensuite. But should you choose to use this home as a 4-bedroom home, this would operate as a family bathroom. Again, oversized bedroom, mirrored robes, data and TV point. And then bedroom, tenant 3 would be in here in bed 2, again with an ensuite. Each tenant is responsible for their own room plus all of the common spaces. In the walk-in pantry, you have 3 individual pantries that would have keypad lock access as well as on the door. We've done floorboards throughout the living spaces. We've done 25-50 ceiling heights as standard. Each bedroom has got their own split air conditioning unit as well as a 4th in the lounge room. And then we have done solar panels to the roof to improve the electricity costs for the house. This property here, the Corbe 169, this will fit on a 10 metre frontage by 30. So this will fit on a 300 square metre block. Again, you've got common lounge, living, dining, kitchen, a separate media room, 3 bedrooms, 3 en suites. And again, we've put in these lockable pantries through here. That would be one allocated to each particular tenant. So the benefit of these properties is that I can find I don't have the same land acquisition costs as I do for a dual, and I can basically put these into any LGA on any size block of land. In fact, we've just recently designed a couple of 3-bed, 3-bath sort of terrace style homes that are boundary to boundary that will fit on a 7.5 metre frontage on a 221 square metre block. What we know from the properties that we've already sold, got through finance and are under construction is that we have discovered that because this floor plan looks like a traditional 4-bedroom home, we have had less prejudice from the valuers at the time of them picking up the build contract. Because it presents like a 4-bedroom home, they're not in a position to just label the purchaser as an investor. We've also found that these properties respond better to evaluation because they are cheaper to build than a dual dwelling. So they're more expensive than a traditional home, but less than a dual dwelling. So how this works is the key to this is the property management. So within our business and our property management business, we have 600 homes under management with Gallery that are all our own homes. We don't actually manage other people's properties. But within that, we've actually got a number of, we call them click concierge, because each household becomes its own click. And our property management team are responsible for curating the community that goes into each one of these homes. So as I was showing you previously with flatmates.com, so of the 155 that are looking in Deception Bay, once the house reached enclosed stage, so we would have at least 12 weeks left in construction, our property management team would review flatmates.com. Out of the 155 tenants, they would look to drill down and choose a large tenancy pool. So for instance, let's use 25 to 35-year-old women. From there, we would approach 6 to 9 tenants and invite them to consider being part of a co-living home. We undertake personality checks, we undertake police checks, we undertake reference checks. We basically curate the community. We understand where they work, the hours they work, their hobbies, their friends, their social lives. From that 6 to 9, we would approve 4 to 5 tenants, and each one of those tenants would be presented to the landlord to say, basically give us blanket approval that you're happy to have 3 of any one of these 5 people. We then secure kind of the anchor tenant, as you will, so tenant 1. So that's probably, the favourite of the 5. So we would approach them first and ask them to apply in the co-living home. They agree to it, we secure them. We then use them as part of the decision-making for who is going to be tenant 2, and we then secure tenant 2, again from the 5 that have already been approved. So now you've got 2 tenants secured. We then go to the last 3 tenants that we're looking at, and we would include tenant 1 and tenant 2 in making that a final decision as to who comes into the properties. By doing that, you just get greater buy-in from the tenants, and it helps them to take responsibility for creating that community. Before each tenant comes into the property, I'll just skip over here to the resources tab. You can have a look at the house rules. Now, these house rules have been designed by our law firm, and they are annexed, so rental agreement and house rules, they are annexed to the tenancy agreement that's given to each incoming tenant. Now, a lot of people look at these house rules and they think, oh, that's highly prescriptive and, you know, these are adults and is it far too many rules? What we have found from our experience in the co-living homes that we've done today is that this sets kind of the framework for the household and makes sure that everyone that's incoming understands how to interact and what is expected of them. So the house rules are gone through before anybody enters into a lease agreement. So they're through here, and then you get into the general tenancy agreement. So it means that everybody knows what is expected of them in the house. The additional benefit is that it does give us more grounds, should they be required, to terminate a lease if someone continues to have infringements on the house rules. Under the tenancy agreement, we have a right to inspect for each tenant on a monthly basis. We don't necessarily undertake inspections that often. We try and stick to quarterly inspections per tenant, which would allow us to inspect up to 12 times per year. But if we needed to, or we felt that there was an issue in the property, we could be able to inspect the property up to 36 times a year. As I mentioned, we work directly with flatmates, so we approach the tenants. So unlike a traditional home where you need for the house to be finished, keys to be handed from construction to property management, they photograph it, they put an ad on REA, they host an open and people apply, we proactively approach and select the tenants. And currently, with such strong disparity between supply and demand, we're not even having to advertise or list our rooms or our properties, that there are more than enough tenants in the areas that we are delivering these properties that we're able to secure the tenants from us approaching them. So as I mentioned, 3 leases, 3 bonds, regular inspections, and we go direct to the tenants. Outgoings. So as I mentioned, solar panels on the roof. So like any property, the water bills are always in the landlord's name. They get sent through to property management and the usage gets divided equally by all 3 tenants. So if Q1 of this year it was $300, that's $100 for each tenant. Because we've put solar on the roof, the electricity bills need to be established in the landlord's name, but again, just have the bills directed straight through to our property management team. And again, the electricity costs are divided by 3 and recouped from each of the tenants individually. We have previously looked at increasing the rental rate on a weekly basis to include outgoings or to include bills. What we found and what we experienced was that what we had allowed for or budgeted for was exceeded substantially by the tenants. We found that there was this shift in the idea that the tenants started to think, well, I've already paid for that water or I've already paid for that electricity, so they weren't as mindful in terms of their usage. And in some of our larger co-living homes, our property management team could go in and find that, out of the 5 bedrooms, there were 3 bedrooms that had the split air conditioning unit running all day, even though the tenants weren't there, because they had a sense of entitlement to it because they had purchased it. The way it works now with us dividing the costs equally, it's made each of the tenants more accountable. So, for instance, if they get home and there's no one there, but the lights and the air conditioning are on in the kitchen, we found that the tenants will now switch it off. They certainly wouldn't go into another person's room and do it, but at the common areas, they have a sense of responsibility. And because they're actually receiving a copy of the bill with their share, we're just finding that the usage are going back down to where they were expected to be when we were budgeting for them. And then with this style of property being a dedicated co-living home, again, it comes down to having the right insurances. So if you guys have already had some experience with rooming houses, you guys might already be working, but we work with a company called MGA, and they are an insurance broker that specialises in this type of rooming accommodation. So under the resources tab, you can download an insurance quote and PDS. So this quote has been delivered from a company called Millennium. They're underwritten by Lloyd's, but we've accessed it through MGA Insurance Group. The lady that I work with is Karen Tacken, broker specialist, and as you can see here, she's a rooming, sharehouse accommodation and multi-tenant property specialist. So this insurance cover, $2,240, ensures that the house has got the appropriate tenancy cover. We have spoken with Ian Ugarte. Some of you guys might know him. He runs a program, small is the new big or something, and he does a type of co-living homes where you adapt an established home into a co-living home. And he was telling us that they had found that when they first got into the co-living space, that people would often ring like NRMA insurance who kind of weren't au fait with these properties. And what would happen is that you'd have a client taking up 3, 4 or 5 individual landlord insurance policies, but that from his experience there were always gaps in the policy. So he introduced us to MGA Insurance Group, and so we know that our property management team can be working with the landlords to make sure the right cover is in place from the outset. So in terms of property management fees are 8% plus GST. Our property management team is responsible for organising the delivery, installation of all the furniture, and we arrange for that to happen during the back end of the practical completion claim. So obviously you guys already know that once you get to the PC claim, that is when a client must take out their own insurance cover for the build. They are required to send a copy of that insurance certificate across to their mortgage holder. We also require them to send it through to our property management team, and once they receive that, our property management team arrange for the furniture, the white goods, the electricals, all to be delivered. They're unpacked, assembled, moved into position. The electrician will come and hang the 4 TVs. The fridge gets moved into place. The washing machine, the iron, the pegs get into the peg basket. The cutlery gets put through the dishwasher and put back into the drawers. The artwork's hung on the living room floor so that the house is fully furnished, waiting for the tenants to move in at handover. One thing I will note about the furniture package, it doesn't allow for mattresses in the 3 bedrooms. That is something that we have found most tenants either bring themselves from a previous property, or if we have a tenant who does not have a mattress, that is arranged at their cost with our property management team at the signing of their lease, and our property management team will organise for a mattress to be delivered and installed at the property. And then exit strategy. So what we had found today was, dual dwellings are a fantastic vehicle for high income, but the exit strategy for clients was always a little bit tough because the number of people in the market looking to secure a second-hand dual is a very small proportion of the resale market. So the exit strategy for a dual dwelling could take some time. But what we've discovered with co-living is that it really has the broadest exit strategy of any property type, because these properties, when you look at the floor plans, they will function as a traditional 4-bedroom family home. So you can sell them via a local agent into the local occupier market, or you would sell this property to an investor based off yield. So we probably haven't had a property type that has had quite as good exit strategy as this one. So I'll just take a break. Did anyone have any questions for the information that I've literally thrown at you so far?
I do.
Great.
So you keep referring to it as a 4-bedroom. Thank you for your presentation. That was awesome. And I'm glad we've got that website to refer to. However, you keep saying a 4-bedroom home, but I can only see 3 bedrooms. So are you counting the media, or how can you say it's a 4-bedroom?
Yes. So when you get the build contract, that media room we've labelled it here for co-living as a media with a storage, but this is actually bedroom 4. So this is actually a mirrored robe, and this would be bedroom 4. So it protects the valuation when you're undertaking your finance, but we've labelled it here as a media room on this website to make sure that everybody understands there is no opportunity for 4 tenants. This is a maximum of 3 tenants. As soon as you've got a 4th person living in this property, whether they are an adult or a child, but a 4th person living there, this property must adhere to 1B construction measures, which it wouldn't adhere to, and you must register with Queensland Residential Housing Services. And if you don't, it's a fine of $33,000 per room.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
And
about
coming
someone
back
has a boyfriend? What happens if someone has a boyfriend that moves in?
They can stay over as a guest. So this becomes the tenant's home, right? So they can have birthday parties, Christmases, weekend barbecues. They can have and stay with them, but as long as it doesn't exceed the house rules. So you can have a guest come, you can have a family member come and stay for a few days. They cannot live within the property, and they cannot live in the property for more than 24 hours in a 7-day week. Now that would be a boyfriend. So if you had a boyfriend, they could stay over 2 nights per week. If you had somebody coming and they were staying with you for a week, that's different, right? They're there temporarily as a house guest. But as an ongoing basis, if somebody is regularly in the home, it's a maximum of 24 hours over a 7-day period.
Get it. Yep, thank you.
So,
Any
can
other
I ask a
questions?
question?
Yes,
Yeah, I
Alex.
have- Yes.
Here.
That's Richard.
I notice it's only a double garage. So what happens
Yes.
with the 3rd car?
They park on the street.
And how is that designed?
If you have 3 tenants with 3 cars. So you have to remember these are low income earners. So they earn maybe $65,000 per year. So not every one of these tenants has a car.
So am I right, just from the suburbs you mentioned where you already are, that this is some type of property we would find only in a lower socioeconomic area?
No, absolutely not. What it comes down to is people are moving into areas, and it kind of works out. So, for instance, I did one of these presentations in Canberra, and the presentation went for about 20 minutes, and there was not one question. And I was really nervous that I'd either been really boring or nobody got it. And so I apologised to my referral partner and said, I'm not quite sure what went wrong. And he said, no, everybody here gets it, because this is basically the property type that everyone goes into at some point in Canberra. Because what he was explaining to me, in Canberra, most people that work there didn't grow up there. Most people that are working and living in Canberra have moved there for a job. So this is trying to offer a house type where somebody is going into an area, they're 32, 33 years of age, they've taken either a highly skilled, poorly paid job or a low skilled job. So these are retail managers, hairdressers, early childcare workers, social workers, pharmacist assistants, because pharmacist assistants for the first 5 years of their career are capped on their earning capacity. They've obviously done 4 years at university, but part of their, whatever their licensing is that their controls on their earning capabilities for the first 5 years. So these are people that are employed but earn $65,000 a year, that do not want to either live by themselves or are wanting to live in areas which is currently not supported by 1-bedroom or studio accommodation. The thing to remember is that by 2041, there is an expectation that single occupant or lone households would make up 24 to 25% of all census respondents. But we already know that single occupant household types that will even take into consideration granny flats and boarding houses only make up 5% of the property market. So if you've got somebody who is not needing to work in a high density, high traffic area and is wanting to live in a green suburban setting, once you actually start to look at what the accommodation actually looks like, there's very limited options. I've actually done a co-living home for a client who wanted to go into Upper Kedron near the Gap. Now, that investor had a philosophy of investing within a 15-kilometre radius of a CBD. So they already had a really good buying capacity, so they could go up to about 830,000. We managed to get them into a double-storey co-living home with the furniture package at just on $800,000. The reason for turning it into a co-living home was to try and maximise the income on that property. What we discovered when we looked at that Upper Kedron, the Gap locale, was that there were over 300 tenants looking for a room in that location, and there were 97 that were looking to pay above 300. So that house is currently already under construction. Our property management team are in the final stages of selecting the tenants, and where we're sitting at is that we'll actually have rental income into that property of about $1,000 per week, because we've been able to get a premium on the rent, and each of the tenants is paying about $335 per week. So this is for an investor that was already looking for a non-traditional investment product, but he had his own rules for it. But by turning it into a co-living home, we've just been able to maximise that income.
Thanks, Alex. I've just got another question regarding the garaging situation. Would the two tenants that had undercover parking in the garage pay more rent than the one that parked on the road?
Absolutely. So what we would try and do with the floor plan is try and leverage where we could, Jill. So probably for bed 1 and bed 2, we would offer them a car space within the garage. And what we have done, depending on who the tenant is, what the profile is, with bedroom 3, we have been able to offer in a number of the properties the media room as a private sitting room attached to bedroom 3. And we've found that that has been when we've had one tenant, for instance, who was working from home, we've been able to secure a greater weekly rent by giving them the media room for their private use as well. So if there's an opportunity, we'll use those to create leverage.
Okay,
but we do have.
Sorry, one last question. I'm assuming these would be full turnkey, minimum garden, like come as ready to walk in?
Exactly, full turnkey fixed cost contracts. With regards to the rear and front garden, they are the responsibility of all 3 tenants. So, for instance, if the backyard was left in disarray, all 3 tenants are held responsible for it. But as part of the Click Concierge service that we've done is that we've got a couple of assets that we use. So we've got like a gym mowing contacts in various areas of southeast Queensland. And by having a number of these co-living homes together, we've been able to negotiate some really good rates with those, and we put it to the household. So we might go to a household and say, for $50 every 6 weeks, someone will come, mow the lawn, weed, and maintain the rear and front yards. But then they are already established as fairly self-sufficient with watering systems, etc., in them to make them as minimum requirements. The only thing that I would mention, though, in a lot of our homes, we seem to be attracting real homemakers in the property. So we are finding that a lot of the tenants are actually taking better care of the garden than we experience in some of the family situations we have in our traditional homes. Because you don't have 2 adults and 2 children, you've got 3 adults. So it seems like we get a better outcome for the upkeep of the property.
Thanks, Alex.
Could you tell me what price the properties are?
Sorry?
Could you tell us what approximate price that the properties are?
So we've got, I've got packages for like a co-living terrace style property where you would achieve $750 to $900 per week from about 470,000 right through to 800,000. So it depends on location and size of the property. But for instance, and so if you said to me, I've got 2 clients that could go into a co-living and we can go to a maximum of 550,000, I'd be able to send you a number of packages right across Southeast Queensland. Not Sunshine Coast, but certainly on the north side and the south side.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Richard, did you have a question for me?
Yes, I actually, I have someone right now that this may be very suitable for them. I like this better than quote unquote a rooming house, because I suppose because it comes in at a less cost, because it's 1A not 1B.
Yeah.
I suppose your insurances and everything along that line, and the way you've explained it, it makes a lot of sense. So yes, I just sent a message through to Catherine just to see if we've got any listings at present from you.
No, but I will get you a suite of packages tomorrow. Basically, what's happened in the current market, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing it, it's very hard to get holds. So what we're trying to do is produce almost indicative packages of what is available in an area, present them to your clients. That package may or may not be available when your client's ready to go, but we would try our hardest to replicate it. Or what we might be able to say to you is, Richard, here's a package in Cavella at Greenbank, for instance, and Cavella has 350 square metre blocks in almost every one of their releases. So when your client's ready to go, $1,000, their driver's licences will secure the land and package it up for them.
Okay.
So can I just ask there, Alex? Yeah, we'll get you one, Richard, no problem. Alex, can I just ask the ones you sent at Deception Bay, are they all gone, or that's land's not registering till December? So you sent me some the other day in Deception Bay. Are they still available?
Can you remember the lot numbers, Catherine?
Oh, no.
There's
18 or...
definitely stuff available. There's definitely stuff available though in
that's all right. I can get that from
Alex,
you, and I can
ask a couple
provide
of
it to other
questions,
people.
please?
Yep. Go for it, Rog.
Thanks.
I like it.
You mentioned about rent guard. What is rent guard? How does rent guard work? And I have another question regarding the cost of the furniture. Now, the furniture package, what is the cost, and is that part of the contract or is that outside the contract?
It's outside of the contract at the moment, Roger, but I am working with Mortgage Mart, which is they access mortgage products via Origin, and Origin have designed a co-living mortgage for us. So I'm just waiting for it to be finalised, where your client would be able to enter into I think it's a 90% LVR, and it would also cover the cost of the furniture. The furniture packages are here in our resources tab. So depending on the size of the house, there's small variances in the pricing, but work off $25,900. Now, I know a lot of people go, oh my God, that seems a lot, but that is for all the furniture, the white goods, the pots, the pans, the cutlery, the ironing board, the washing machine, the dryer, for everything. The TVs, everything to be delivered, assembled, moved into place, hung on the walls, washed and put away in the cupboards and the drawers. So once your client pays for the furniture, there's nothing else they need to do for it. The rest of it is coordinated by our property management team. And the next thing I will know about the furniture is the photographs that are being taken by property management as they're going into the property. Talking about rent guard. So rent guard is the lease back options that Gallery offers on all of our properties. So there is a document here about the click rent guard, and basically what we're offering is a 5-year lease back at 5%. Now, if you had a nervous client who just wanted to know that the property was looked after for the life of the property, this can work well. But I try not to talk about it a lot, Roger, because I don't think it's the right outcome for a client. If you were buying a traditional home, we offer a 5-year lease back at 4.5%, right? So the difference between the incoming rent and what we're securing is minimal, and I would take it up. If you had a client that wanted to go into a traditional house and land, I would take up the rent guard every day of the week, because for 5 years, they have 0 vacancy. They never have to think about the tenant or the rent. They've got rental income from day one. With the co-living homes though, we rent them differently. Because we don't wait for the house to be finished, we're actually talking to tenants for your property while your house is under construction. And what I think about that you've got to get your clients to understand is, even if you only had 2 tenants, right? Even if there was only 2 tenants that moved in within the first week of your property being finished, that's still $600 a week in income coming into the property. So the rent guard is there. Go through the brochure if you want it. If you've got somebody who's done their maths and they never want to think about it, because the way rent guard works is 28 days after practical completion, we pay the first rental payment into the client's nominated account. And that is 1 month in arrears, 1 month in advance. And then every month thereafter, they get their rental income, because they've signed up a 5-year lease with Gallery, and then we sublet the property. So if the tenant's late with their rent, doesn't matter. The client still gets paid as normal. If the property's empty, no matter, they still get paid. There's even extra protections, like Gallery's got to pay the rent regardless of whether the tenant's there or not. So if a tenant has left the house and the house is not up to scratch and we need to undertake works to achieve the rent, that's on Gallery to do it. So I feel like it's got really great appeal if it was a traditional home, but just because of this huge disparity between supply and demand, and the fact that we have to start talking to tenants so far ahead of the move-in date, I don't recommend it as an outcome. I think what is attracting people to this property type is how strong the income is for the property. One thing I didn't show you guys, which I'll just open now, is oh no, I don't want to leave. I want to share something. I wanted to show you our construction portal. So the moment a deal goes unconditional, your clients would receive a username and password to be able to enter the client portal. So, Catherine, if your team had done 10 deals, you'd be able to log in here and see all 10 of your deals. The client would only see their own property. So let me just find one that is getting close to being handed over. Okay, so this is a dual dwelling in Belmere, in Moreton Bay Council. So the clients would be able to log in here. They'd be able to see when we started, when we expected to hand over the properties. You select activities. Now, this is running directly off On-Site Companion. So On-Site Companion is the project management tool that we use for building the house, and heaps of builders actually use this same program. We're the only one that sort of publish it in public though. So when you first log in, everything would be here orange with a proposed date, and as things actually happen and get ticked off, you will get a actual completed date. So the whole way along you can see when we proposed and when we actually did it. And at any one stage, you'd be able to scroll down and see exactly where we are up to with regards to the construction phase. We also put up every document that is associated with the build is listed here. We used to just put the key documents up, but we always found that clients would go to a family barbecue and there'd be a property expert there that would say to them, well, you know, have you got your sewer drawings? Oh, well, if you haven't got them, there must be a dodgy builder. So now we put up every document, regardless of whether they understand them or not, so they can see exactly what is happening. We also put up photos. So from SiteCut, we put photos up so they can actually see the house taking shape. These photos are taken by our site supervisors. So there's often a portaloo in the middle of the shot, so just ignore that. But you can see the house taking shape the whole way along. One thing you will notice though is how clean and organised the site is, because our site supervisors don't have time to be there cleaning up the site every time. So Sunland was pretty good, but not as good as this. How good, because it kind of works a little bit like Big Brother. Then there are messages associated here for anything key, and then there are stoppages also noted as well. I'm kind of nervous to have a look at what it might look like. Oh yeah, there we go, 39 days. Got to love those timber shortages. The other thing that Gallery does is we undertake our own third-party inspections. Let me just see if this one has already got them. So we engage a company called K-Spec. So there's no requirement for a client to work with flatmates.com or Jim's Property Services. We organise for K-Spec to come through on 2 separate occasions, and they're both listed here. So first inspection and second inspection. And then once the works are actually done, we add the report. I was hoping this one would have been far enough along. We add the report to the portal so that the clients can see exactly where we're up to. In fact, this one's probably had theirs done. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, so you can see the first K-Spec report is here, and the second. So our business, because Adam owned Oliver Hume in Queensland before he set up Gallery 10 years ago, part of what he got to do was sort of look behind the curtains of a huge number of builders as to who was doing things well and who wasn't doing well. And our whole business has really been built to perform on being transparent. So it's for our system, it's kind of a warts and all presentation. So that system works for every one of our builds.
Alex, Jill Clifford here again. Just jumping back to finance, is the loan come through as a construction loan, house and land type loan?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to get some clarity on the, you were saying that you have this rent guard.
Yes.
It sounds a lot like a DHA setup, you know, where you own the home, but you've leased the property to like Defence Housing, and they're responsible to put the tenants in and take them out and move them around as they require. So sometimes the house could end up being empty, but you're still getting your rent.
So it's similar to DHA, but we're we've got no attachment to the tenant that's going into the property. So we will always try and put in the best quality tenant as we can, because if they misbehave, it's on us to pay for it.
Yeah, I understand that. So what would be the property management on a system like that? Was it the 8.8%?
Yeah, 8.8%. 8.8.
So for 8.8% property management fee, you could have a Gallery Homes would become in a sense, the tenant, and then sublease the rooms.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
So we offer them on all of our properties. And let me come back here. So on our Gallery Group homepage, if you scroll down to asset management, just to our property management team, there is information here with regards to Rent Guard and about how it works. And there are rent card documents there for the 5 years, and we offer a 10 years on our dual dwellings, and there are brochures there for both. And our property management team is headed up by a lady called Christy Lord, who specialises in multi-tenancy properties.
Yep.
And at various stages of her career, she's had in excess of 2,000 properties under her management. So she's got a wealth of experience. She's not a property manager who's got into property management as a sort of a starting place in the industry. She's actually a dedicated property manager professional. I don't know what's wrong with her. Something, because I think management would have to be one of the hardest gigs in the industry. But she loves it and excels at it.
Okay. Oh, that sounds very good. So you could do it if you're, say, okay, you're putting the home loan together. We're putting the home loan together. Well, then wouldn't you include that furniture package in the original contract cost for the house and land package?
The problem is, Richard, is most banks won't finance the furniture.
Okay.
So it's worked. So the majority of clients that have picked this up quickly and run with it have been, I suppose, more seasoned investors, where they've been able to use equity out of the properties to pull out an extra $25,900 to buy the furniture. And then in the background, we've been working on a finance solution for, I suppose, the sort of more first-time investors as to how we could leverage part of their deposit by increasing the LVR on a property where we could pull down enough money to be able to cover the mortgage and the insurance. So I'm not a finance person, but it might make sense to you that it's a two-part mortgage. So within the one mortgage, there's one section that's 7 years and one section that's 30 years.
Right. So
you've got a combined interest rate, but the machinations, and as soon as we've got the information, I'll release it to you. But I know what they were trying to do is create a product that would allow a client to pay back the furniture over 7 years so that they could still take advantage of the high income on the property, as opposed to having to take a cash neutral position on the property for 2 or 3 years to pay back the furniture costs.
Right.
But it's certainly going to allow more people to access the product.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Another question, you had when you were saying about checking out the tenants, you had a personality check, police check, and what was the third one?
Oh, and then we just do standard reference checks. So we do DISC personality profiling.
Yep.
We do police reference checks, and then we do 4 reference checks. So they might be 2 professional and 2 personal.
Okay. So you are the builder of the house and potentially the property manager of the place as well, in a different department, obviously.
So this is sort of where we've designed a product that we know how to achieve $900 per week. But what we know means you have to have it furnished to access the yield. And to successfully tenant it, you need to be working with people that have got multi-tenant experience. And look, we've had a few people that have gone, oh, you know, I work with LJ Hooker and they've got my other properties in Logan. And we say to them, look, you ring them and say that you want them to secure 3 tenants during construction, that you want personality testing, police checks and reference checks, that you need a furniture full of furniture, white goods and electronics to be delivered, installed and hung on the wall, that you want up to 36 inspections per year, that you need 3 leases and 3 bonds, and see what they'll be able to achieve for you and what they will charge for you. People very quickly are straight back and go, no, I get it, it's fine. Well,
Yeah. I think you have to sell this property with the property management.
Yeah.
It's similar to NDIS or similar to the rooming houses. You need to sell the specialist property management for them to get the best outcome.
Absolutely.
You're selling the whole service. And
exactly.
And as you sell it as a whole service, it removes the potential stress level on the buyer, or help to remove any buyer's remorse in someone going into an investment like this.
I think the benefit of this property, Richard, is that if you sell it as an end-to-end service, right? That these are the 3 ingredients that are required to deliver the income result that you're wanting. And we've got another referral partner, and it would be interesting for you guys to even speak with some of the brokers that you're working with. But they've even worked out that if you had a home and your home had a mortgage of $450,000, for instance, and you bought a co-living property and you used the additional income from that co-living property, is that we've done this matrix a number of times, but you can pay off your $450,000 mortgage on your home in 15 years. So to be able to even look at this as being somebody who you might have previously assisted to get into the market, but they would be in a position to pay off their own home loan and start building wealth on a high income property like this. You know, a lot of people are saying, and I've talked about the exit strategy, but the reality is with this property type, there wouldn't be an exit strategy. This would be the property that you keep. This is like the cash cow that you keep within your portfolio. I think it's got, I think when somebody gets their head around who the tenant is and how deep that demand is, because a lot of people have approached it thinking that it's, you know, like halfway houses or student accommodation, and it's like, and once you actually start to understand that 50% of the full-time employed Australian earns $88,000 or less, and that these people are, you know, nurses or childcare workers or social workers or Woolworths managers, and they earn $65,000. I mean, the reality is gallery employees, women who would fall into this category. You know, we've got a number of administrators in our business who are single or divorced, no children, who would be above 35 and earning around $70,000. This is theirs. I mean, even my EA who works for me here in Sydney, her children have grown, but she is a divorcee, and she lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, and she has a roommate in the property with her, a flatmate. So it's just actually trying to put them into an area where the housing opportunities that exist there are either high density, high traffic areas or are run down older homes. And once you actually go onto flatmates and you start having a look at what some of the accommodation options are like, you realise that there's actually not a lot of options available for people.
Yep.
I think I've used time, Catherine.
Yeah, I want to say yeah, because otherwise the recording gets really too long as well. But they're all valuable questions, so I really appreciate your time, and we'll be definitely sending this out to the others, and we may even arrange some sort of webinar around the country. But I really love the product and agree with you. There's a lot of single people out there because I've got my own granny flat, and I know what happens every time I put that online. You know, I get so many applications. So great to be able to provide a really nice quality product to single people that need a good accommodation. So excited about presenting and promoting these properties. If you can send me those samples, but I might just hit the record button so we're off record. But I'd love you to send me the properties tomorrow, Alex, and
Yeah.
we can talk some more.
Perfect. That'd be